Hello and welcome back. Before I begin, I have some new subscribers to thank. So thank you to Frisnet, drgirl4891, The Perks of Books, Hollyberry1980, Poker Playing Pig, Jasmine Lee 91, Cameron John, Michael Craig George McGee, and Milton P. Thank you all so much for subscribing. I really appreciate it. And I do have to say, Poker Playing Pig, you should probably try to get into a game with those poker playing dogs, because pigs are a lot smarter than dogs, so you make out really well. And now, on with the haul. Once again, this is going to be a haul from the Book Thing of Baltimore, a wonderful nonprofit that gives out free books every weekend and also accepts donations of unwanted books, and you can find out more about them at www.bookthing.org. First up, I was really excited to find this. I think I mentioned in one of my previous videos that Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe is one of my all-time favorite books. And I went through this whole series of copies of Moll Flanders. One, I actually didn't even read, it was before I'd read it, and I didn't even get to read it because all the pages were falling out, I realized when I got it home. And then another one was in a volume with The Vicar of Wakefield and Joseph Andrews. And I already had The Vicar of Wakefield, and I tried reading Joseph Andrews, and I figured I have already slogged my way through Tom Jones, and this one is just not doing it for me. I give up. So I didn't want to be stuck with this book that I hadn't entirely read, so I got rid of that. And then I think I wound up with some, I think I now own some sort of flimsy paperback copy, but I was so excited to find this modern library edition with the dust jacket, which is really pretty rare in at least at the Book Thing, to find a modern library book with a dust jacket. So really glad to find that. And then I picked up Shifu, You'll Do Anything for a Laugh by Mo Yan. Mo Yan is the most recent winner of the Nobel Prize, and I had never read anything by him before, so I figure I ought to. I've had really mixed experiences with Nobel Prize winners. I may be the biggest fan, I guess, apart from the Nobel Committee, of Elfriede Jelinek, and I had never heard of her before she won the prize, but so many people don't like her, and I think she's just a genius. She's one of my favorite authors. But then some of these other people who've won, I've tried to read them and just been bored out of my mind. Except, oddly enough, Herta Müller, I read one of her books right after she won the prize. I think it was The Passport or something like that. Found it incredibly boring. And then I wound up reading The Hunger Angel much later on, or I guess this past year, and really liked that. So some of these people, maybe I should be giving them a fairer shake. I don't know. But anyway, Mo Yan, ladies and gentlemen. And then I got Linden Hills by Gloria Naylor. I've just always been really curious about this book. I think I've mentioned this before, that I have an ambition to read something by everybody in my Salon.com Reader's Guide to Contemporary Authors. Gloria Naylor is one of the authors, and this is her book that looks most interesting to me, so I am eager to give it a try. It's a little bit of a Faust story, I think. And then I got Dirk Bogart's A Short Walk from Herod's, his 6th volume of autobiography. I'm a huge Dirk Bogarde fan. I have this major posthumous crush on him because he's dead, and he was also gay, so even if he were alive, he wouldn't be interested in me. But I just adore him. And I not only have the 700-page authorized biography of him, but I have many of his volumes of autobiography, but not his 6th. So I'm eager to have this. And actually, though, I hate to say this, but I had one of his novels, and I forget what it was called. It's something like Voices in the Garden, that might have been the title. And I read it, and maybe I just was at the wrong place, and if I tried it again I would like it, but I was not crazy about it. So I hope his autobiographies are better than his novels. And one of my big disappointments, I found a lot of good things, but I had a big disappointment this week, which was that I did not find a new Fay Weldon book. And they had about 6 copies of what's it called? The Heart of the Country, which I already have. People, I do not need 6 copies of The Heart of the Country. But I sort of got 2 half Fay Weldon books, which I will explain. I got Woman in Intimate Geography by Natalie Angier, and Fay Weldon blurbed this. It's not, doesn't appear to be in this edition, but she basically said something like, every woman who wants to know what's going on in there should read this book, or something like that. So why not? I trust Fay Weldon. So that's the first Fay Weldon half. And then the second Fay Weldon half is, I already have this book, Splitting, but my copy doesn't have a dust jacket, so I upgraded it a little bit. And this is another upgrade. I already had Bret Easton Ellis's The Rules of Attraction in paperback, but it was a pretty ugly edition. And I found this hardback edition, which is probably pretty rare. I'd never even seen it before. Have to say, not a huge fan of this book. Like all of, well, not all. Basically, the two Bret Easton Ellis novels that I absolutely adore are, or books, because he wrote one book of short stories, are American Psycho, one of the best books I've ever read, absolutely phenomenal. I started crying about a third of the way through and basically did not stop until I reached the end. Amazing, amazing book. And Lunar Park, which is not quite as well realized, but is also really interesting and moving. His other books I've found have these little, and I've read all of them at this point, have these little flashes of brilliance, but just don't quite live up. Which, I mean, it's a huge bar to cross. I mean, American Psycho is an amazing, amazing book. But, you know, so this one I was not crazy about, had a couple of great parts, but I hang on to them anyway because I'm silly that way. And then I got Brand New Cherry Flavor by Todd Grimson. This just is a really odd looking novel, and thought it sounded interesting. And Tintin in the New World, A Romance by Frederick Teuton. I believe it's pronounced Teuton. I may be pronouncing it completely wrong. I read one of his books called The Green Hour. He's another one of these Salon.com people, and wasn't all that crazy about it, but Tintin, who's also pronounced Tintin, but my mother's bilingual, she also speaks French, and so she always pronounced it Tintin, was one of my childhood favorites. Just loved all the books, read all the books, practically have them memorized. So this is, I guess, a contemporary and more adult take on the characters, but might as well give it a try. And then I got Coyote by Lynn Vanucci. This is another, I guess you could call it from the Pratt Stacks selection, another one of those books I just came across when I was shelf reading in the stacks of the Enoch Pratt Free Library, and it looked interesting, so I was eager to find it again. This Bantam New Fiction, the ones with spines like this, is a kind of interesting imprint. Some of their stuff I've not been crazy about, but they did Lewis Shiner, they did Lucius Shepard, William Hauptmann, some interesting people. And I feel I'm kind of on the fence about this, because I think I may have actually unloaded my previous copy of this book, Alex Garland's The Beach. But this is a Penguin Anniversary edition. It's green, it's kind of spiffy looking, and I feel like I sort of should have this on my shelf because The Beach is the novel that led me to read Jay McInerney's Ransom, which I loved even though it didn't entirely work as a novel. And then that led me to read American Psycho, which led me to change my life. So I feel like, Alex Garland, I kind of owe you. You deserve at least a little slot on my shelf. Especially in such a fetching green penguin cover. And let's see. Oh, and then I got Virtual Life by William Gibson. You may remember last time I got Mona Lisa Overdrive and said I thought that was the first volume in the Bridge trilogy. It turns out this is. So now I do have the complete Bridge trilogy. Oh, and I also referred to Iduru as Eidolon, which is another science fiction novel by a completely different author, but I have them both. So sorry, William Gibson fans, I completely messed around there. And Oh, this was cool. I found Denzil Courier by George Gissing. I love George Gissing, although he was super prolific, and I have so far read only 2 of his books, New Grub Street and The Odd Women, which are the most famous ones. But those were both so great, and I keep picking up Gissing volumes and meaning to read them, so perhaps someday I will. And then I got this Exegesis by Astro Teller. I have no idea what this book is. I really don't. I just like the title, and it's a vintage, not one of the really cool vintage contemporaries with the color block and all that, but it's a vintage book, and it really tells you nothing about it. So I guess that's good marketing strategy. If you're publishing a book, don't tell anybody anything about it, and maybe they'll pick it up out of pure curiosity. And then I got Living in Ether by Patricia Geary. I'm not sure what this particular book is, but Patricia Geary is an author I've been interested in for a while. She's a speculative fiction writer. One book she wrote that I really want to read is Strange Toys, but I haven't found that yet, and I found this one, so there you go. And this is one of the older Bantam Spectra books, which means it's probably pretty good. And then I got The History of Plymouth by William Bradford. I'm really interested in the that period in American history, and I think the version I had was abridged or something. I had a version of this, and there was something wrong with it. I can't remember what, but now I have this lovely hardback classic edition. And then I got Les Contemplations by Victor Hugo, his poetry. I am a little worried by all the little flags sticking up, which means it's probably marked up, but I flipped through and it didn't look horribly marked up. So I really hate it when people mark all over their books and then I have to read them and get distracted. But keep your fingers crossed for me. And then I got The Law of War and Peace by Grotius, or perhaps Grotius, I'm not sure. I actually just picked this up because it was in this classic binding. I had no idea what it was. I actually had to ask my father what it was. Apparently this author is one of the founders of kind of the idea of international law and that all nations should abide by certain laws. And I guess this is where he sets that out. Then I got Days of Awe, a treasury of traditions, legends, and learned commentaries concerning Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and the days between by S.Y. Agnon. And what else? Here we go, coming down the home stretch. I got The Rise of the Roman Empire by Polybius. And L'Homme Traqué by Francis Carcot. I have no idea what this book is. It looks like some sort of espionage type thing. But it's livre de poche, and I love the old livre de poche. And then last but not least, I got Le Livre de ma Mère by Albert Cohen. And Cohen wrote a massive novel called Belle de Seigneur, which I have. And it's 800 pages long and in French, so I've sort of put off reading it, although it looks really good. But maybe I'll start with this shorter volume, especially because we have it in the bookshop where I work on display in an English edition published by Archipelago Books. And so I can now read this, and if I love it, I can hand sell it. Won't that be exciting? And if you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me for my next video.